Okay. All right, good evening, everyone. We'll get started for December's Grimsby Heritage Advisory Committee meeting. Welcome, everyone. It's good to be here. I will begin this evening with our land acknowledgement. The Niagara region and Grimsby are situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Haudenosaunee, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The regional municipality of Niagara and Grimsby stands with all Indigenous peoples, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the land on which we live. Thank you. And now I will ask for any disclosure of pecuniary interest. Doesn't look like it. Thank you. And the agenda for December 12th, I have a resolution here that the December 12th, 2023 Grimsby Heritage Advisory Committee agenda be approved. Do I have a mover? Councilor DeFlavio, thank you. Okay, that's great. Oh, we need to do an all in favor. Perfect. Thanks, you guys. That's carried. All right. Yeah. Yeah, Amy, we need you on board for everything tonight, okay?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, let's head on over to the previous minutes. So I have a resolution here at the Grimsby Heritage Advisory Committee minutes of November 14th, 2023 be received. A mover. I'll go with Amy this time. All in favor? Fantastic. All right. So we'll head right to our first report. We have a heritage permit from the Nellis Manor regarding their, well, I'll let Bianca explain, and we're happy to have Bill here in the audience. So thank you. Yes, Bianca, go ahead.
Thank you through the chair. I'm just going to share my screen. So as Sarah mentioned, we do have Bill here tonight. He's brought some samples with him, and he's here to answer any questions that the committee has. I also wanted to note that Nels Manor is still considering whether they're going to go with the composite material or the cedar shake, but they wanted to bring this permit forward so that they could get the options that would be approved by the committee and council, so that they can speak with the board and make a decision. So in summary, the heritage permit was deemed complete on December 4th. We have 90 days to provide a decision on this heritage permit, and it'll be going before the planning committee on January 3rd and then council on January 15th. A conservation plan was put within the agenda, and we worked closely with Bill and Nels Manor on the conservation management plan. I wanted to note that all of the content within that plan is in accordance with the standards and guidelines for historic places in Canada. For everyone, you likely know about Nels Manor, but it's a 2.5-story stone building designed in the Georgian style by Robert Nels. It was constructed in 1788 to 1798, and it was purchased by the Coots family in 1971, and they purchased it from descendants of the original owner. The Coots family spent the subsequent 40+ years restoring the original portion of the building to its late 1700s origin. And this has been a loving restoration for the family, and they are so dedicated to the preservation of the building that in 2015 they donated it for as a non-for-profit museum, and the title of that museum is the Nels Manor Heritage House. It's a fantastic museum and really captures an important part of our community's history. So I wanted to provide a summary of the heritage permit requests. So they applied for two different components, but the conservation management plan covered a lot of topics. So if something is maintenance, then it's encouraged and it doesn't require heritage permits. So a lot of the work in the conservation plan is permitted without these permits, and they are just sharing with us their conservation plan within there for those items. But the main items is the roofing and the change of the railing. So both of these are different materials or different design. So because of that, they need the permit. So the roofing on the on Nels Manor right now is a cedar shake. But they did share with us that when the cedar shake was installed about 20 years ago, it was originally asphalt before they had put down the cedar shake. So it's definitely not the original roofing material. And if they were to replace the cedar shake with cedar shake, again, a heritage permit wouldn't be required. It's because they're looking at the composite material. Some of the reasons they're looking at this composite material is because the cedar shakes of today are from new growth wood, and because of that, they don't last as long as the original ones did. They're also tend to be thinner. And in talking with Nels Manor and Bill, they were explaining that they had put in the insulation in the roof, and so historically, the roof wouldn't have had insulation, so when the hot air was rising, it would dry out the roof structure and keep the cedar shake more dry. But since the insulation has been added, it's also a very wooded site. You're seeing a lot of the algae growth and vegetation on the cedar shakes, which just further breaks down that wood material. So because of this and the cost that comes with purchasing cedar shake, they're looking at some different options. So the composite material that they are proposing to use looks very similar to the cedar shake, but it enables a more dry environment, and in the end will look very similar to the original, but it's a material that will last longer. It's a little bit more cost effective, and it also adds to the fire rating of the structure. So that was the main components of the composite material. And then in summary, staff would be supportive of the composite material. We think it's compatible with the building, and it enables the roof structure to maintain being dry and structurally sound, which is really important to the overall structural integrity of the building. Yeah, so that was the first one, was the shingles, and then I'll talk about the railing. So the railing was designed by Nels Manor. They took a lot of care to have it be something that was period correct and in keeping with the character of the home. This is also an entry point, so there was some safety concern with the deteriorating railing. This was also added in the 1950s, so it's not original to the site. And so they were looking for something that would be upgraded for safety and also something that would match the original style of the home. And staff is also supportive of this change, and they can see that, and we can see that it will be something that will be really compatible with the heritage building. And then I just, again, wanted to just commend the Coots family and the Nels Manor team on the high-quality restoration work that they have been doing on the site. And I know Bill has been working on the shutters, and they've done just such a beautiful job with the building. And then I do have a couple recommendations. So I recommend that the heritage permit application be approved, and that it has the following conditions, so that the approved works be completed in accordance with the design methods and materials proposed within the Nels Manor Conservation Plan, and that all elements being restored be photo documented prior to the restoration work being completed. And then, because this is a provincially protected site, they're going to have to go through the Ontario Heritage Trust for permits. So we would like to provide our supportive staff report and any comments from the committee and council, send that with them as they do their provincial heritage permit. Thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions.
That's great, Bianca. Thank you for that report. Any questions from the committee regarding this? We're lucky to have Bill Thompson here with the composite roofing there, if anyone has any questions. Oh, Amy, yes, go ahead.
Hi, just out of curiosity, how long is the composite shingles expected to last in comparison to the cedar? I think it's a great alternative, but I'm just curious as to what the time frame is for it.
Yeah, Bill, if you'd like to come up and just speak at the podium so that Amy can hear you, that'd be great.
Bill, yeah, if you can hit the bottom right button with the little person on it.
Like that. Yes, the cedar shake were put on in 2003. It's now 2023, and they need replacement. So the average life for the wood shingles is about 20 years. The composite ones, there's two manufacturers here. I don't think you can see where you are, but both of them are guaranteed for 25 years. And the composite also have a fire rating of AAA, whereas wood shingles don't have a fire rating really because they're dry wood. And the cost, from a local builder here, the cost versus wood shingles and versus the ones on the left, the composite rubber ones, composite rubbers were a third less price than the wood shingles. The original shingles in 2003 cost $20,000. We have a quote to do the shingles again this year in wood, and it's $63,000 in 20 years. So we're looking to, I'm just really looking for the permit to have the alternative so I can take it to our board, and our board can decide which and what they want to do and which are the alternatives. But unfortunately, from the camera, you can't see them, but if, I think the others can vouch that these look very real and very much like wood shingles.
No, thank you. That's fantastic. I appreciate you answering my question. Thanks, Bill.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Phil, for answering that question. I think just from looking at the shingles from this perspective, they don't look much different from wooden shingles. And I feel like it's, the opinion of the committee that we don't want to stand in the way of you being able to repair your roof, which is the number one concern. And as a charity, a nonprofit, we know that finances can be limiting. So if this can be an option that enables you to repair your roof, but then also look similar in style with the character of the house, I think that would definitely be something we're supportive of. Mm-hmm. I like that Amy, Bill said that the house is the artifact and the roof is the shield. And I think that's definitely true.
I like that.
I also just wanted to note, again, what Bianca said, just the work that you're putting into the house, the community really appreciates. And just even having these conversations and, opening the dialogue, bringing the shingles here for us to see, it's just really awesome to have that kind of relationship with the Nellis Manor also. So thanks for coming and for bringing that with us. We really appreciate it. Any other questions? Oh, Garrett, go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I just wanted to add in as well that I believe the shingles are made of recycled materials, which I think it's a nice sustainable product and slightly more sustainable than wood. And I think the fire rating is important too, just considering the amount of forest fires that Canada's been experiencing. We're fortunate enough that it hasn't happened here, but that's a great preventative measure that can be taken. Thank you.
I like that. And I know Bianca and I were talking before the meeting started about, the difference between cedar shingles today versus when the house was originally built, the old growth forest versus the new growth shingles, that like the wood that's making the shingles today, and how that adds to a difference. And then also the fact of how, now we have insulation in the houses, which is causing, the moisture on the roof in the first place. So I do feel like, changing material to adapt to the times also is important. So I just thought that was a really interesting thing to add, so I wanted to share it. But okay, any other questions or concerns from the committee? Okay, then I'll put this to a resolution. I have here resolved that the report GH 2320 Heritage Permit Application, Nellis Manor, be received, and that the committee recommends that the heritage permit be approved with the following conditions. And that, so first, condition that the proposed works be completed in accordance with the designs, methods, and materials proposed within the Nellis Manor Conservation Management Plan, and that all elements being restored be photo documented prior to restoration work being completed, and that the comments provided by the Grimsby Heritage Advisory Committee and council decision on the heritage permit application be shared with the province when the property owners complete their provincial heritage permit process as required. Do I have a mover? Okay, Councillor DeFlavio, perfect. All in favor? Fantastic. Thanks, everyone. That's great. Thank you very much, Bill, for coming. Okay, next up on our reports is a recommendation report for a street name request, and I'll turn that over to Bianca to share.
Thank you, through you, the chair. So in our report, you can see that we had a street name request for the development adjacent to the foreign marina. So we're now ready for a street name for the condo road, which you can see it on the screen highlighted in gray. So there was some discussion about potentially using Foreign Lane because of its adjacency to the marina. However, in consultation with the Grimsby Historical Society, it has been shared with us that there's a lot of significance with this area, and they have recommended a more historical name be used. We're supportive of all the names within the document, so we'll leave it up to the committee to make that decision. Thank you.
All right. So the committee's reviewed the names that have come up, that have been suggested by the Grimsby Historical Society. I wanted to open up to committee about what you think, something resonated with you, a piece of history that resonated with you, and hopefully we can have a discussion about what your thoughts are.
Because of its proximity to the Battle of the 40, Victory Lane was one that stood out for me, but I like a lot of them. So I assume that Victory Lane was because of the Battle of the 40, and I didn't see that in the report because I think it only, does it have just the three, or does it have an explanation? Oh, it does. Sorry, it's in the War of 1813 description. So we had the bicentennial a few years back of that battle. It's already been 10 years since the bicentennial, but 210 years ago that battle occurred. It is a significant battle. We have the plaque on the opposite side of the creek, so I think it does go with that, but I'm open to whatever suggestions the committee has.
Thank you, Councillor DeFlavio. Amy, did you have any name that resonated with you?
I actually liked Victory Lane. I thought it had a lot of significance, similar to Councillor DeFlavio. But for me, it just had the most resounding sound to it. I think it stood out the most. But again, all of them are favorable. I don't think there was one bad one in there. But that was the one I would like to move forward with.
Okay, thank you for that, Amy. I had a bit of a different reaction to the names. I found I was quite drawn to the history of the Hands fishery, the Hands family, their relationship with that physical part, like the physical geography. And the fact that history, to me, isn't as well known as some of the more of 1812 history that we do have in the community. So I think that's why I was more drawn to the more social, economic history that we don't often talk about. But I did want to ask, like with saying that, like that there's this history of the Hand family and the fisheries and the development down there, like I feel like if we were to name it like Hands Inlet or something, that people wouldn't necessarily know what it is because that history is so unknown. So like my question would be like, if we were to choose that name, like is it possible to, I know there was a program in the past where like new developers like there was like an agreement where they could put a historic plaque up on the development. Does that still exist? And is that something that like we could do that? Because it's one thing to name it Hand something, but if people don't know what it means, then it's kind of useless as to why we're naming it that. So I don't know if you can answer that question.
Through the chair, I'm not sure exactly where this development would be at. I think they've already gone through site plan. That's something we definitely could incorporate in scenarios where we have like heritage permits and things like that. We can have that commemorative piece, which I think is important. I think in this scenario, if we have maybe some kind of like public area, maybe that's somewhere we could consider putting a plaque to speak to it. But yeah, I'm pretty sure this is already past the site plan phase. But I can look into it and see if there is another option that way. But yeah, I'm not sure if there's a mechanism at this point to require that commemorative piece. But yeah.
Yes, Amy, go ahead. And thank you, Bianca.
Thank you, through you, Chair. No, Sarah, actually, I think that's a valid point. And I think that's maybe why Victory kind of just stuck with me a little bit, because there was no explanation behind it. And similar to what you were saying with like Hands Inlet, I found the same thing. Like there was nothing really connecting, and I felt like it would just get lost kind of within the history of it. So I'm very much with you. And in the future, if there is the opportunity for us to kind of make the history more front and center behind the name, then I think that would give us more options, most definitely.
Okay, yes, thank you, Amy. Yeah, I think that's kind of where I stand. So I don't know what to do with that information. Like, I don't know what to do with my question, if it's past the point where we can ask for a plaque, and if that request would get lost in the shuffle, if there's a public spot, and if we don't know if there's going to be a public space yet, like I do wonder if we should focus on the history that we do know, and the history that we do know will be commemorated. Councilor DeFlavio, did you have your hand raised?
Yeah, I was going to say, most of, other than the Nellises and the Grouts and those kinds of names that are, repeated throughout Grimsby history, most of the streets in Grimsby are named after people that kind of are unknown. So this is one of the ways that we preserve the name. So it doesn't necessarily require a plaque. If the committee likes Hands, then the naming itself might cause somebody in the future to explore the history of it, or and us putting it on the record is a way of recognizing that history as well. So, we've got a plaque for the War of 1812. If people prefer Hands, I'm fine with it. I like the history of it. It's a neat, and I agree with you in the fact that it's not the typical type of history that we celebrate. So, I'm fine with either one. So Hands Inlet or Hands Place works for me, and those plaque programs are long-term. But again, just recognizing it and putting it in the report already gives, somebody in the future the ability to Google it and find the report and say, oh, this is why it was named that, or and even the people that are building there might want to recognize it in some way, so.
No, I do appreciate that point. Thank you for bringing that up. Councillor Cristangi, I know you just arrived, but we've been discussing the naming of the new street name of the new development by Foreign's Marina, and we were wondering if you had anything you'd like to add. We've been thinking of Victory Lane to commemorate the War of 1812 history in that area, and then I brought up possibly having a name that lends to the Hands family and the fishery that they used to operate there too, as a way to kind of highlight more working class social history of the area. What would you like to recommend?
Thank you, through you, Chair. I do like recognizing the working class sort of the area. I was hoping maybe something a little bit more to recognize our Indigenous ancestors in the area, because I do believe along the 40 Creek, there was Indigenous settlements before the Europeans came to settle. So that was just sort of a thought that I had. But I do like the Hans family as well, too.
I'm glad you brought up that Indigenous connection. That also crossed my mind too, especially given that it is a main waterway, and we know that the Indigenous people who were in the area were hunting and fishing along the waterways of Grimsby. So that would be a natural way to commemorate the land too, or the area as well. So we could just go back and ask for some Indigenous names as well. I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on that Indigenous element.
Thank you, through Chair. I was just thinking because, we do land acknowledgement, and part of truth and reconciliation is recognizing the Indigenous. And I don't think, to my knowledge, we have done that yet with street naming. And so, we have recognized many of the European settlers and the local families and stuff like that. So it might just be a nice new step in our process of truth and reconciliation to start recognizing some of our Indigenous families and the history of that in our area, since it is pretty prominent.
And even just thinking that brought up an idea that could maybe in a way combine both the Hans family fishing as well as the Indigenous element, because they were likely fishing the same fish. So we could name it after a common fish that was in that area as well. I don't know what people think about that idea, but that could be a way to marry both of that significance. Because again, that's what brought people to that specific area in the first place, like the mouth of 40 Creek was because of the fishing.
I don't know how many people want to live on a street named after a fish, but it's, I agree with you. I just don't know that I'd want to live on, Trout Street but yeah.
That's a good point.
Victory Lane is going to sell a lot more homes than Trout Street, but that's not what we're here for. We're here to recognize history, so.
Thank you, through Chair. I do like the idea of Victory Lane, but I know there was talk about the street by the Legion being renamed, so I wouldn't want to have that too close to what is proposed over in that area.
Also a good point. Okay, so we could put to the Grimsby Historical Society to maybe consider Indigenous names for the area. What would you suggest? We could go with the working class route. I feel like we're still kind of undecided, but what would you suggest we do, Bianca and Garrett?
Through you, Chair. I agree with the Indigenous one. I think that's a really important one. And I know we did send a resolution over to the Historical Society, and I think that's something we definitely should work towards. My only concern is I know they're getting ready for needing building permits. So I think there's a little time sensitivity around this. So I just wanted to note that. I don't know if maybe we wanted to put a placeholder in. You can reach out to the Historical Society, see if they can get us some more options. I know that we did just send over another request for 3 more that are coming. So maybe we can ask them for those 3 to be focused on Indigenous history. So I just wanted to give you that little bit of information. I know there's some sensitivity around the building permits. That's the only item that would be an issue. But otherwise, I think it's really important and something we should do. So.
Okay, that's good to know. And now that you mention it, I do remember this happening in the past where there was a development. We asked for street name suggestions and we put back a request for more Indigenous. So I'm not sure how to move forward, because I think the same issue happened in the past too, where there then became a bit of a time sensitivity to the building permits, right? So I'm not quite sure the best way to go about that, rather than asking the Historical Society again to to do a little bit more research. And I know it's difficult because there isn't as much written record, historical record on Indigenous history in the area. But we do know if there is any Indigenous history pre-settlement in Grimsby, it's likely the waterways. Like, we do know that. So I do wonder if we could put forward a placeholder that we are in agreement with today, with the recommendation that if we're able to get an Indigenous street name that honors, respects that kind of history in the meantime, or before the permits go forward. I'm not sure if that's possible. I'm not sure. What is the committee's thoughts on that? Like, if we pick a placeholder and then make a request to somehow get other names, for Indigenous names in time. I don't know how this works.
I think I agree with the committee that I think it's important that we recognize. So if there's not a huge time crunch, and I know that you mentioned there's permits coming, but if there's not a huge time crunch, then I'd rather put it off to the next meeting and name this one. Because if it's, Councillor Stange talks about the proximity to the 40 Mile Creek, and that is, it's a relevant one, rather than naming one in a subdivision where we don't know the history. This is one that we know that there is a relation to the Indigenous people because of its proximity to the waterways. So I would rather hold off and give this one a name that's, every name you want it to somewhat be relevant to the place, and the other names that we were given were all very relevant. It would be nice to have an Indigenous name that is relevant to this location as well for us to choose from. That's all. So if the committee wants to hold off till the next meeting to finish this naming, I think that might be the more appropriate way to go.
Thank you, Councillor Flavio, and I do agree. I think it is worth waiting for this particular issue, just again because of the geographic location of the street being so close to the mouth of the 40 Mile Creek. We do know that history is relevant there, and I would hate to miss an opportunity to name something that's important to that pre-settlement history. So if that's okay, I think that's the way to go, unless any other committee. I see some nods from Amy and Councillor Carstangi, so we'll discuss the resolution. One moment. Okay, thank you, Bianca, for writing that resolution on the fly. I'll read this out and see how it sounds. to the committee. Resolved that report GH 2321 street name request be received, and that the committee recommends that an Indigenous name be considered based on the subject land's proximity to 40 Mile Creek, and that the committee recommends that staff contact the Historical Society to provide some Indigenous names for the proposed condo road. Sound okay? Do I have a mover? Councillor Korstanji, thank you. All in favor? Thank you, that's carried. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Okay, and now up to our designation research reports for this evening. Very exciting to have a historic church and its lands on the agenda tonight. So we will have Garrett up to first read the report for 152 Main Street West, the old rectory. Go ahead, Garrett.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Staff would like to note to the committee that all property owners have been given notice twice of the proposed designation of their properties. Staff are working collectively with property owners to address any questions or concerns they may have. We would also like to thank the Grimsby Historical Society and community members for their contributions towards the preservations of these buildings, as well as Wayne Mullins from Legacy Research. Based on the assessment of cultural heritage value or interest, staff recommend that the property at 152 Main Street West be designated under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Staff have concluded that the property has met 5 out of 9 prescribed criteria of the Ontario Regulation 906. The property meets the criteria for design and physical value because 152 Main Street West was built in 1855 in the neoclassical architectural style. The building retains a significant amount of original material from the original 1855 building, and the later Victorian additions, including the 2/2 wooden sash windows and porches, represent the evolution and prosperity that occurred at the church. The property meets the criteria for historical and associative value because the dwelling was built as supportive housing for St. Andrew's Church. The rectory structure was built to house Reverend J. Lundy. The property at 152 Main Street West has direct associations with various notable United Empire Loyalist families that shaped the church and the community around it. The property meets the criteria for contextual value because 152 Main Street West is important in maintaining and supporting the streetscape of the historic Main Street West corridor. The rector at the time wanted a rectory that was in close proximity to the church. 152 Main Street West was constructed to serve this purpose. Based on the assessment of cultural heritage value or interest and significant findings, staff recommend that the property at 152 Main Street West be designated under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. I'll also add in, it'll come up in the other ones as well, but the wall you see in front of the house is believed to be from the original construction of the church at 154 Main Street West. I'll get into the wall a little bit more when I talk about the rectory at 154, but we believe that's an original piece from around 1819 to 1823. Thank you.
That's great, Garrett. Thank you for sharing the report. Any questions from the committee regarding 152 Main Street West? Amy, we weren't sure. You were very small at one point.
Oh, no questions for me.
Okay, thank you. I just have one, just out of curiosity, in the report, you mentioned the Udall House. The Udall House. Could you just, what is its connection? Can you just clarify for me? I was just curious.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Yeah, so the text about the Udall House was speaking to, I believe it was a property to the west abutting the churchyard. We haven't been able to figure out exactly which property that was, but I felt it was important to put into the 906. The report hasn't been vetted by the Historical Society yet, but I'm hoping that they can clarify what that means. But I felt like it was worth inputting at least. Thank you.
I I appreciate that. Thank you. And I think it is important to add. And hopefully by adding it, we can find a little bit more information about it, which is the whole point. So that's awesome. Awesome. Okay. If we don't have any other questions from the committee, then I think I'll move to our resolution. I have here, so resolved that I gotta make sure that the addresses are correct. I'm sorry, because there's many addresses, but okay. Resolved that 152 Main Street West be designated under Part 4, Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act, and that a notice of intention to designate be issued in accordance with the Ontario Heritage Act. Do I have a mover? Councillor DeFlavio. Perfect. All in favor? Perfect. Thank you. Oh, Amy, yes, you have your hand up?
Through you, Chair. Apologies. My Zoom was doing something on its own. So apologies.
Okay.
No question.
Thank you. All right. We'll move forward then to the next designation research report. This one is for 154 Main Street West, Church and Rectory, also delivered by Garrett.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Based on the assessment of cultural heritage value or interest, staff recommend that the Anglo-Norman Church and Edwardian Rectory at 154 Main Street West be designated under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Staff have concluded that the church has met 8 out of 9 prescribed criteria, and the rectory has met 4 out of 9 prescribed criteria of the Ontario Regulation 906. So I'll go through the church first and then the Edwardian Rectory second. So the church meets the criteria for design and physical value because the church at 154 Main Street West is a rare, unique, and representative example of the Anglo-Norman style. Construction of the Loyalist stone church was started in 1819 and completed in 1823. This medieval revival style is derived from Roman and Romanesque architecture, which has been simplified over time in Upper Canada and influenced the design of early English Loyalist churches. The church at St. Andrews was one of the first 4 Anglican churches built in Ontario. The property meets the criteria for historical and associative value because the church structure at 154 Main Street West has direct associations with Andrew Pettit, the Anglican religion, Colonel Robert Nels, and various notable Empire Loyalist families. 154 Main Street West was based off of the design of plate number 25 from James Gibbs's Book of Architecture, published in 1728. The church contributes to the understanding of the communities surrounding the Anglican Church and provides a greater understanding of the early development of Grimsby and how religion played an important role in the community's development. The property meets the criteria for contextual value because the distinctively designed St. Andrew's Church and surrounding cemetery is the final resting place of many early Loyalist settlers. The area presents a significant and cohesive collection of heritage resources which tell the story of early settlement within Grimsby. The church structure at 154 Main Street West is a landmark. The structure has played an important role in Grimsby's history for the last 2 centuries. And the stone church is located on Main Street West, a former Indigenous peoples travel route, and an arterial road connecting York to Niagara. Based on the assessment of cultural heritage value and significant findings, staff recommend that the property at 154 Main Street West, or the church building, be designated. Should I just run right into the rectory then? Okay. So now I'll speak to the 1906 Edwardian Rectory. So the 1906 Rectory at 154 Main Street West is representative of the Edwardian style. The Edwardian style gained popularity during the reign of King Edward. The style is a reaction to the decorative excess of the Victorian period, and the structure is an intact example of this. The structure has also been noted as one of the most representative examples of Edwardian architecture in Grimsby as well. The property meets the criteria for historical and associative value because the structure has direct associations with St. Andrew's Anglican Church, as well as ties with Reverend Allen Ballard. In 1906, when Reverend Allen Ballard and the church decided to sell the old rectory, a new one was commissioned on church grounds for the working reverend at the time. The stone foundation for the new rectory was taken from the old fence that surrounded the front of the church, and that remaining wall in front of 152 is the remnant of that wall. And when that wall was taken down, it was replaced by the present iron fence that is in front of the churchyard now. The rectory still maintains its historic use and is used to support St. Andrew's Church. The property meets the criteria for contextual value because the rectory is important in maintaining and representing the evolution of the church's needs over its 200-year existence. The rectory has played an important role in supporting the Church of England and the Grimsby community. While the church grounds have changed over the last 200 years, these supporting buildings visually represent each change introduced by the incoming reverends. The rectory has been captured in many historic photographs of the church and graveyard and continues to be a defining feature of the site. Based on the assessment of cultural heritage value or interest, staff recommend that the Edwardian rectory be designated under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Garrett. Is there any questions from committee members? No. First of all, it was really cool to see a lot of the pictures in there, so thank you for including them. But I do have a question on figure 12, which shows the church with like a wooden fence in front. And that was from like the 1880s was the date. So I was just kind of wondering for more clarification on the stone fence that that kind of went across the property. Because at some points it says that the stone fence was demolished in 1906 to put up the iron fence, and there's a random wooden fence. So I was just wondering if there's a way to like kind of confirm the date of the photo, or if there's another way to maybe even that book that Catherine wonderfully brought in with us might have some more information, but just the dating with the fences I thought was interesting.
Thank you through you, Chair. Thank you for pointing that out. That's a very good point. I'm hoping the Historical Society can bring a bit more light to that. Maybe it's possible that the wooden fence we're seeing was just in front of the church. I'm not too sure. I do know that stone wall does carry around other portions of the graveyard around the back. So I do believe it is quite old, and the masonry is similar to the one used on the church, but we'll have to do a bit more investigating into that. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Just something I thought I would bring attention to as we continue to dig into because I know that the fence has been of interest to us and to the staff and to the Historical Society as well. And then also really glad to see that the Lich Gate is part of the designation. So that's really exciting, and to have a little bit of the history there. I do wonder if I noticed also a bit of a discrepancy in the reports, and I'm not sure why this might be, but in this report on 154, with the cultural heritage value, it speaks of like the Main Street West district, like the cultural landscape. But then in the other designations, it refers to the old Village of Grimsby cultural heritage landscape. And I was just wondering what the difference is and why are they the reason why I ask is because these properties are all kind of similar, and their continuity is so important to the story. Is it important then to have the same continuity in the reports too about the cultural heritage landscapes and stuff? So I don't know if you can speak to that also.
Thank you through you, Chair. Professionally, I'm inclined to include both, so I'm glad you pointed that out. I do identify all these buildings as downtown core buildings, but they are also on Main Street West. And I know in the Main Street West attributes, the church and rectories are listed as attributes within there, so maybe that's why those were included. But I will amend that, and I'm inclined to add both into each report. Thank you.
Thank you, because I was going to suggest the same. I think both should be included. I just, again, to emphasize how important it is to that stretch of the town, and how it speaks to the different stories of Main Street West story is a little bit different from the old village story, right? But it's still important. So I think it's also agreeable to include both. So I just wanted to bring that up as well. Thank you. Those are all my questions. If anyone had any other questions. Yes, Councillor Christiange, go ahead.
Not really a question, but I do believe I read that the captain of the Colored Corps was buried in St. Andrew's Cemetery. So I'm not sure if anybody else has come across that. I didn't find any more information on it, but it was just, that's where he was buried.
Through you, Chair. Let's talk about that afterwards. I'd like to include that. Yeah, I'm hoping the Historical Society will have something to add as well, and our new book. Thank you.
Yes, we were really lucky to get a donation of a book on the history of the St. Andrew's Church today. So thank you, Catherine, for that. Okay, with that said, then we'll continue on with the resolution. Resolved that 154 Main Street West be designated under Part 4, Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act, and that a notice of intention to designate be issued in accordance with the Ontario Heritage Act. Do I have a mover? Councillor Christiange. All in favor? Wonderful. Thank you. All right, and our last research report of the evening, 7 St. Andrews Avenue. Go ahead, Garrett.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Based on the assessment of cultural heritage value or interest, staff recommend that the property at 7 St. Andrews Avenue be designated under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Staff have concluded that the property has met 6 out of 9 prescribed criteria of the Ontario Regulation 906. The property meets the criteria for design and physical value because the structure at 7 St. Andrews Avenue is a strong and representative example of the Gothic Tudor style. The Gothic Revival style became popular with the influx of United Empire Loyalists settling within Ontario. The plans for the hall were drawn out by the chosen architects, Stewart and Whitten of Hamilton. The masonry work was tendered to by Gordon McQueen and Copeland, and the carpentry went to the local notable business DeMarsh and Sons. The painting was also done by William Farrow. The structure is unique and does not have any comparables within the immediate area. The property meets the criteria for historical and associative value because many notable names within Grimsby's community put forth the money to erect the parish hall, such names as Pettit, Dolmage, Ross, Nels, Drope, Wolverton, Powell, and more. With the number of worshipers at St. Andrews always growing, the community felt the need for an event and community space. The local community gathered and built a parish hall for centrally located events that was close to the church grounds. The property meets the criteria for contextual value because the structure at 7 St. Andrews Avenue maintains the character of the St. Andrews churchyard and surrounding buildings. St. Andrews Parish Hall is one of the 4 historic buildings that make up the St. Andrews Anglican Complex. The cohesive collection of religious spaces have been an integral part of Grimsby's landscape and Anglican community for over 2 centuries. Based on the assessment of cultural heritage value or interest and significant findings, staff recommend that the property at 7 St. Andrews Avenue be designated under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Thank you.
Thank you, Garrett. I love this building. I love the architecture of it so much. So it was really cool to have it, just to hear more about it in the report. Any questions from the committee? Oh, yes, Amy, go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Chair. More of a comment, but similar to you, Sarah, it's such a beautiful building, and the Tudor Revival is such a unique architectural style that really stands out in Grimsby, so it was nice to see it preserved along with the other buildings attributed to St. Andrew's Church.
Yes, Garrett, go ahead.
I just wanted to commend the church as well. Like, the buildings are very intact. They maintain a high degree of original material, and they've done a really good job preserving them. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, I had a question. I forgot it. Oh, so I did want to confirm with the designation. So the 1967 additions aren't going to be included on the designation. We're just focusing on the historic structure originally built.
We haven't listed that as an attribute, no. No.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted that clarified. Okay, and I know in the past meeting, we discussed the changes to the Ontario Heritage Act that dealt with religious institutions and changes that designated religious institutions can make. I was just wondering if you have any updates on that bill and how that would impact this, and if St. Andrew's Church knows that, because I know in the past there has been some questions about designating churches in the community for that reason, and so if the St. Andrew's Church knows that there have been proposed changes to the act to allow religious institutions to change their buildings to help them with their worship.
We've notified the church of the designation. They've received the report. We haven't had any correspondence with them yet, but we do encourage them to reach out, and we'd like to explain what it means for them and the property. But Bianca can speak to the new bill, or impending bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Through the chair, I just checked right now the ERO website, and it says on November 21st, it received its third reading, and it's now awaiting royal assent. So once it receives a royal assent, we should still get a proclamation date by the lieutenant governor. So we're still waiting for that, so no change yet. But we'll definitely talk about this with them when they reach out to us.
Thank you for that update. And yeah, I do think that's a good part of the conversation to add with them, and if you do get a chance to talk to them about what that change to the Heritage Act means as a church. Okay, any other questions from the committee at all? We'll move forward with the resolution then. Resolved that 7 St. Andrew's be designated under Part 4, Section 9 of the Ontario Heritage Act, and that a notice of intention to designate be issued in accordance with the Ontario Heritage Act. A mover. Amy, thank you. All in favor? Great, thank you. All right, that's carried. Okay, so that's great for all of our reports for the evening. Thank you to staff for putting those together for us. And next up is to move into closed session to discuss some training for a designation workshop. And to do so, we'll need to pass a resolution to move into closed session. So I have that with us tonight. Okay, so I have a resolution here. Resolved that the Grimsby Heritage Advisory Committee meet in closed session under Section 239 3.11 of the Municipal Heritage Act, or no, just the Municipal Act, where a meeting is held for the purpose of educating or training the members, specifically regarding orientation, education, and training sessions, including information pertaining to heritage designation reports and statements of significance. Do I have a mover for this resolution? Councillor Kristanji. All right, all in favor? Okay, great. So that means that we are moving into closed session. So I'm just going to give us a sec to figure out what that means. We are now officially out of closed session, and now I have a resolution for what we discussed in closed session. I'll read that out. Resolved that the information provided in the workshop be received. A mover. Amy, thank you. All in favor? Perfect. Thank you, everyone. That's carried. And we have an announcement as we move forward in the agenda. We have an announcement from Garrett, if you'd like to share.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I just wanted to say staff have received a removal and demolition request for the property at 7 to 9 Adelaide Street. It's pertaining just to the structure that's address number 9, which is set farther back from the road. So I just wanted to put it out to the committee if any of the members have information about the property that they'd like to contribute to staff's assessment. If you could please send it to us by ideally December 22nd, next Friday, that would be best. We'd like to bring it to the January meeting to meet our timelines for the request. So that'll leave us enough time to complete the assessment thoroughly. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I look forward to that report, and if we have any information, we'll send it along to you. Thank you very much. Any other announcements from the committee? Okay, everyone. So I think that is it for our December meeting. Thank you all for lots of productivity again, as always, lots of enthusiasm. And I guess that's it until the new year. So I hope everyone has a super awesome holiday season. Be safe, have fun. And we'll see you in 2024. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening. Sorry I couldn't be